What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin.
And we have an album review for you, and one that I know has been brought up in the comments a lot, and believe me, we were going to go over it because I've been over the last two, and this band is just exceptionally strange, and yeah, I'm always curious about what this band releases. So we are going to go over the latest offering from Veilburner, The Duality of Decapitation and Wisdom. This also comes out on the 15th of November on Transcending Obscurity Records. This band formed in 2014 in Pennsylvania, or hell, could be either or. Once you hear them, you might actually question that. This is their 7th album overall, and there's an interesting theme with 7 on here. As this is their 7th album, there are also 7 tracks, and each track on here is exactly 7 minutes long. So I think that's just kind of interesting. I actually went over their album Lurkers in the Capsule of Skull a while ago as a solo review, and the band actually reached out to me, really appreciated the review, and I ended up going over their self-titled, I guess it's self-titled, like they just kind of removed some letters from the name and it's self-titled, whatever. And I ended up liking that one possibly even more. Actually, that's still kind of like the one that I return to the most. And to describe this band is truly something else, because it definitely falls in line with like weird dissonant bands and, you know, avant-garde and black metal and death metal and kinda prog in a way. Hard to describe. Band even looks kind of weird too, especially when you look at their costumes. Like it's, I don't know, just disturbing in general. I briefly mentioned them in our collab with Melty a while ago. And yeah, well, we're going to try to really describe this as best we can.
Yeah. I never actually really sat down and listened to this band. Surprise, surprise. That seems to be a going theme for me here on Thralls of Metal, to not hear bands I should have heard, but I should have listened to this band. And if you know me on this channel, you know what I'm into, and I should have listened to this band. I'm stupid. But I did listen to it, and we're going to get into that. So describing this band's sound, super dissonant, odd harmonies, atonal riffs, crazy transitions, very odd riffing patterns, industrial moments. There's a bunch of chugs, blast beats. It's really all over the spectrum. Like, you hear me struggling to describe, but like, think of like 1,000 different things and then kind of mesh them together. It's like Gorguts meets Mr. Bungle.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I would say it kind of falls in line with bands like Mitochondrion, maybe Anal Nothrock, Blodas Nord, Dot Heimskard, or Heimskard, I don't know how to pronounce that one. It's strange, but all right, while those, I would say, like, definitely, you know, kind of lurk in that avant-garde territory, there's more to it than just that. Like, this is insanely technical, very thematically lined up in terms of its composition and its narrative, I guess you could say. It is absolutely bonkers as far as like soundscapes and just weird, inventive, very creative, just songwriting in general. The riff we're going to hear is all over the place. It can go from just like atonal strumming to like just very dissonant, you know, tremolos and such, to just flat out like chuggy thrash riffs at times. And then you get these weird crawling atonal harmonies, and there's a lot of counter melodies, and they're not always with guitars. Sometimes you have synths and soundscapes. I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what they're using in terms of like background soundscapes in here. All I know is that I've listened to this enough to the point where I'm sure I'm going to hear them in my dreams or nightmares. Kind of can go either way here.
It's difficult to pick a track on here because while they are vastly different, they interlock well with one another to make them kind of flow better overall. Like the title track, it's actually part 1 and 2, and the first part of it, I would say, has more of an industrial vibe to it, whereas the second part has this weird kind of like, I don't know, spacey circus. I don't even know how to describe it.
I mean, they are vastly different from one another. The industrial stomp that kind of kicks off the first part of it, you know, a little bit more reminiscent of bands like Ministry or I would even say like Godflesh. And it's an interesting build. Like, it feels very staticky and very muffled. And then you have this atonal strummed part. It sounds like it's a harp. Like, it doesn't necessarily sound like a guitar. It probably is a guitar because there's lots of different guitar effects on here. But it kind of sets us up with this very strange atonal melody. But as the song progresses on, it moves into like vastly different territory than how it opened. Like, there are some repeating melodies, but it becomes way more like black metal sounding. There's a section of just these absolutely devastating death metal chugs. And then that second one, I mean, it's really hard to describe. Like, it comes in with this kind of like drunken swing to it.
Yeah.
And it's actually like kind of a pleasant melody up until they kind of change the chord structure to sound more, again, like dissonant, atonal, and they start descending the melodies down, and it becomes a little bit more haunting, a little bit more unsettling, like you're trapped in a circus funhouse and the fucking peyote kicked in.
Yeah, and that is a very accurate way to describe it, as crazy as it sounds, because it really does have that kind of vibe to it, like that descending melody, like it's all warbled and it sounds like it's being played through a speaker that's slowly losing power to it, or electricity, or like the batteries are dying in something. It's just like a slowly dying toy.
Like a carousel that's on its last legs.
Yep.
And, all the horses' faces are starting to, like, melt. And the fangs are coming out like, oh, God, not this again. The atmosphere in here is just strange. Like, it constantly shifts around. And one of the biggest elements for that is the narration, the vocals. My God. The vocals on here are absolutely insane. Both in like delivery, cadences, different styles of vocals, their placement in the mix. Sometimes they are right in your face, screaming. Sometimes they're off in the distance with a weird sort of echo on them. Sometimes they're crackling and static. But they always sound like a room full of ranting demons. The way the vocals are delivered are very theatrical. Like, they are hammed up no matter what they're doing, whether they're growling, screaming, grunting, bellowing, doing operatic vocals for a few hot seconds. Like, again, like think Dave Hunt from Anal Nathrak, Attila from Mayhem, his very strange deliveries. It's like, greeting all of Attila's multiple personalities on stage, or all of his different costume get-ups. I mean, I'm pretty sure this band probably likes Mayhem. And that plays off the music so well because you have sections, kind of like building up, getting bigger, more layered, than other sections behind it kind of like dropping out. Then you get these riff changes and these just bizarre transitions into like stylistic shifts. And you get that all while it sounds like Satan is just bellowing out his acceptance speech at the Oscars.
Yeah, pretty much. And the riffs too, they swirl, like the pan in the speakers. Like, you can hear it go left to right, you can hear it move behind you. Like, sometimes the synths will be droning underneath of these crazy melodies. The drone of the synths in part 1 of the title track actually never leave the song. They're always in the background, and it's always like this boom, boom, like just a slowly descending drone, and it sticks around the whole time while these harmonies go up and down over it, and the vocals are screaming. Like, it's a whole experience.
It's rhythmically very, I don't know, like hypnotic too. Like, because there's a lot of stuff that does repeat, but there's tons of stuff going on like on top of it or behind it, or again, like with the vocals and such. Like the second track, 3 visions of hex-shaped hiss behead the howling spirit. All these song titles are bonkers. There's this really interesting sliding riff that has like kind of like a minimalist, like Godflesh sort of approach. Like, it's just this big dark drone, and it feels like it kind of drags you down with that last note.
I love it.
I figured he would. As soon as I heard it, like, I already knew, like, when I was listening to this, like, if John hasn't heard this, this is a John band.
It is.
He will love this.
It is.
There's this really cool transition of snare rolls on there. It kind of gets a little bit more mechanical sounding, like, Meshuggah or Fear Factory. And then on top of that, you get this crawling lead melody that, oddly enough, it reminded me of Alice in Chains. Like, just a dreary melody that Jerry Cantrell would come up with and then just sing a beautiful hook over, which they didn't take that part of the formula at all. But this song has like some absolutely crazy transitions. The whole middle part of it, it kind of leaves metal essentially for like a little bit. Like it becomes like more like noise rock. Like I heard elements again like Mr. Bungle, also the Jesus Lizard in there. It's squawky, it's kind of angular sounding. The atmosphere kind of feels like a little bit anxious at times, and that is kind of like every track in here. Like there's constantly like shifting dynamics on here, but you'd be surprised at how catchy this gets.
Yeah, and that's the strange thing. Actually, I found a lot of this to be very catchy, and a lot of it's in the lead melodies. There's not so much on this album by way of actual leads, but there are a lot of hooky, catchy lead melodies that stick around sometimes for the whole duration of the song. Like the fifth song, Shadows of a Shadow. It's jam-packed with melody. It's all over the place, and the opening riff, too, is kind of sludgy.
A little bit, like it's just kind of like a dissonant, dark, very cold sounding riff. But as the song goes on, you get like just treated to like a ton of different transitions. There's even Middle Eastern melodies in there. The whole end of that song sounds like a Nile bit.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yep, I thought that too.
You get like, like more technical drums, this really cool broken down rhythm. And I mean, throughout the song, like I feel like there's like a lot more straightforward melodies. And this comes after, again, like a whole slew of songs that are just strange and atonal, but again, still kind of draw you in. The sixth track, Woe ye who build these crosses are those who will serve us death. I'm not even going to tell you how many times we screwed that up. That is probably the most riff-centric song on the entire album. The whole opening of it is just a blitz of thrashy chugs, like think like Demolition Hammer, but at the same time, the tags in it are very strange, like these weird sliding tags, like it's a Voivod song or something. Yeah.
And the chugs in that song are actually some of our favorite chugs, as they are a galloping triplet chug.
But this constantly shifting atmosphere and again, like riff structure in here, this is what really draws me to this band. And like, I like weird, dark, challenging listens, but sometimes I feel like there are bands that just kind of like lay on the atmosphere. And it gets to a point where I'm like, yeah, we get it. You're spooky. That's cool. I like that. Give me some riffs. This band isn't so obsessed with atmosphere that it, kind of just like lays on it, just like kind of beats you down with it. This band likes clever songwriting, weird transitions, and it keeps the song interesting in the sense that there's more in the way of dynamics and just like, interesting songwriting. Yeah. Like, this band can legit surprise you at times. And I would say with every song in here, each song, as it opens, it does not close the same way. There's not a lot of bookending. This is like kind of a continuous flow. There's a lot of transitional atmosphere in here. And believe me, it's as creepy as the rest of this. And with all the transitions and like how busy and complex this is, it doesn't feel like it's kind of weighed down by all the things that it's trying to do. It gives a lot of these transitions and sections space to breathe so you can actually kind of like get used to it, or, maybe follow along with the lyrics like I was trying to do on the archives. And I was like, no, I give up. This is a novel about something dark. As much as this album is about creating strange, dynamic, just kind of out there music, it's also about kind of manipulating it too, because the production here is really interesting in terms of like sound modulation. The last track, VII, Voward Ignumus Icon, that one is probably like one of the most like meditative jams. Like it's more tribal drums. Yeah. The rhythm is a little, kind of like off time, but it kind of like locks you in this like, I don't know, like weird sort of like desert sort of vibe, like you're at a bonfire, and again, like the drugs are kicking in and people's faces are melting. We've all been there.
Actually, the opening of that track is one of my more favorite moments on this record. It is an army of marching slide whistles. I'm 100% certain that's what that is. There's like 50 slide whistles layered on each other, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, very percussive, a lot of like war drums, a lot of very tribal, primal energy.
I think I picked up on a like pitch shifted tambourine. There's a tambourine that kind of shakes the background, but if you hear every now and then, like there's a little bit of like a weird pitch correction on it.
Huh.
I could be wrong there. Again, I'm not going to pretend to understand everything that's going on here, just like I won't pretend to understand any of the things they talk about. I know it's like nihilism, occultism, Gnosticism, all the dark isms they could squeeze into this. I don't get it, but I know that it makes for a very engaging, twisted, and just, I don't know, like evil, but like a kind of an indescribable evil. Like it's chaotic and crazy.
Just again, the melodies and the counter melodies and the counter harmonies and the weird vocals and just, it's an experience. To listen to this record, I think it's best to do it as a whole, because breaking apart these tracks almost does it kind of a disservice.
Yeah, and with the way it is set up, because I would say, like, it doesn't feel as though, like, they tried to, like, extend these songs too long or cramp them down to fit that 7-minute mark for each track. It really works, which, you know, tells me they really kind of, like, thought this out. Like, they drew out certain parts just enough and then have, like, an atmospheric lead out that tails right into the beginning of the next song. So listen to this as one listen is 100% the way to go.
Yeah, in fact, when I listened to this at work, I wasn't sure that there were track breaks. I was just walking around doing my job, and like I noticed by the time I get to like the 5th or 6th song, I just feel like I've been kind of jamming and droning along, and like just the way it flows, you don't really catch a break unless you're looking for it.
As for any like negatives on here, I still might like the self-titled one a little bit more. I just think that's an absolutely awesome album, and that is not to say this one isn't. It's just I kind of prefer that one, and one of the reasons on it is the opening track, Tem Opt Ab in Mysticum. Maybe I got that right, probably didn't. For me, in terms of like an opener, it's got a cool like fade in, and there's a lot of like fun rhythmic stuff to it. Like it's got these like broken up kind of squawky riffs on top of blasts and such, and as the song goes on, it gets more interesting, but it doesn't necessarily set up the album as well for me. As the album continued to go on, I felt like it got like a lot better and a lot more interesting. That song, or at least the first part of that song, felt more like it was just establishing the setting and really hadn't kind of like, you know, gone off the rails in their very particular way that I was looking for just yet. But, you know, again, I didn't really dislike the song. It just, I don't know, it didn't kick off the way I wanted it to.
See, now for me, I really like that song. I think it does a great job of kicking off this album into something totally weird and bizarre. To me, it flows kind of more like an avant-garde jam, kind of like a Blue Das Nord track. Like it's got a little bit of riff to it, but it's got a whole lot of strange to it. And immediately the vocals kick off. Like, there's not a moment in this record where this guy isn't ranting and raving and screaming and yelling, and like, I just think it does a good job to really set up what comes next as far as that song is concerned. And for me, the last track, although I liked it because it's full of like primal tribal percussion, I thought it didn't end the record as strong as it came in.
See, for me, I really enjoyed the last track, mainly because there are parts in there that reminded me specifically of Killing Joke's Pandemonium, albeit way darker, way more evil. But again, in terms of like, you know, the layering, some of the grooves on there, some of the weird droning riffs, but they were very like repetitive, and Killing Joke was always good about like just laying on a riff and just kind of just sticking it to you. I just kind of dug that. But overall, this album is quite the experience, and I totally expected that. But I'm going to go ahead and give this 4 stars. I think this is absolutely killer. It may not beat the self-titled one, but it is damn close. This kind of goes beyond, like, again, like a lot of that more like distant avant-garde blackened death metal, because there's so much more in here. Like on the surface, yeah, you're going to hear tons of like distant atonal riffs and crazy vocals and weird atmosphere. But there's also a lot of just like clever riff changes, stylistic shifts, and like legit solid hooks on here. I got a lot of that from the self-titled, and I feel like there's like a good carryover of that to just kind of like bring in flat out riffs. Sometimes with like the more distant atonal stuff, I can kind of get, you know, a little bored. Like, all right, yeah, it's dark, it's creepy. I feel like my house is haunted. Great job. I need some riffs. This band brings that, and kind of everything else. If you are a big fan of, again, like a lot of the bands we brought up, later Gorguts, Blue Das Nord, Donheim's Guard, on All Nothrock, just check this band out. And if you like this one, just keep checking out more of their stuff, because it's absolutely nuts.
I'm also going to go ahead and give this a solid 4, and to be honest with you, it's kind of bordering on a 4.5. I really enjoyed this record immensely. I mean, Nick kind of hit it on the head when he said this was a John band. I've listened to this record 5 or 6 times now. It's pretty awesome. First of all, I love the over-the-top vocals. I just love them. It's just, they've got so much character to him because he doesn't stick in one style for the most part. Like, it is always screaming or ranting or yelling or whispering or just like, rah, blah, 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 blah,
like
just
20 characters.
Yeah, right. Like
it's like a shared universe.
It's like the Muppet Show, just all with one dude.
And on bath salts.
Right. It's like Meet the Feebles, kind of.
That's actually, yeah, there we go.
Yep. The way these songs build and transition, they almost run like a prog album. Listen to it for yourself. You'll figure out more of what I'm saying. Just like the riff runs and the builds, it just kind of builds like a progressive album. The synth work is odd as shit, and I love that. I love all the droning and just again, you get counter melodies and harmonies, and they're always descending, and it's weird. This whole record is an experience. It is very entertaining. It is riffy when it needs to be. It's even straightforward when it needs to be. I just really enjoyed it. I haven't heard any of their other stuff, but I'm, again, stupid and need to go back and do so. Yeah, if you like anything we've mentioned, Later Gorguts, Blue Dawson Nord, Horrendous, Godflesh, Killing Joke, and a ton of other things, just check this out. It's a really good time. I enjoyed it.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this
all the time.
We also now have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and our perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we're going to start doing this month. We might actually do it on Thanksgiving night. That's kind of the idea. I'm going to put up something in the message board and figure out like a time and so on. I know, it can be fun, because we're very thankful for, all of this.
Yes,
and
thank you.
All of you guys. We also have stupid emojis. There's probably going to be more that'll show up, and I guarantee they will also be stupid.
They will.
But yeah, again, this is how to support the channel more directly now. We're trying to get away from Patreon, and this kind of helps us pay for StreamYard, which raising their prices, blah, blah, blah. It's a great service, but they raise their prices. We also still have thrallsmetal.com too. That is where our t-shirts and hats are. And yeah, the link for that is down below in the video description. And if you would like to join up on the channel for the membership thing, there's a join button down below too.
And as always, tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal, album reviews, discography rankings, booger trolls, live chats, member stream chats, blah, 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 blah. Tons of metal stuff all the time. We do it for you guys. We're on the precipice of 20,000 subscribers. We are so grateful and thankful to all of you that have been a part of this. Just blows my mind. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to put together something for a 20,000 subscriber giveaway at some point. But yeah, thank you guys so much for every bit of support you guys give us, and we will catch you later.